Beauty Melon here. So today what I'm going to talk about is my dreadlocks! Yay! Okay, so I'm going to be taking you through the steps of what I do, well, how I made them. I did them all myself. Everything I do to my hair, I do myself. I don't get any professional help done. I'm also going to show you how I made them with if you saw my previous video, I split a dreadlock and now I'm going to re-dreadlock it with you guys today. There are several methods used for forming dreadlocks. In salons, the most prevalent is wax. I am not a fan of wax. I would never recommend wax at all for anyone. It doesn't actually promote healthy dreadlocking. What happens is the wax is twisted into the sections of hair by the person doing it or by yourself. And what it does is it makes it neat and it makes it smooth and it holds it in place. But you can never get the wax fully out of your hair. And unless you keep re-waxing and retwisting, your dreadlocks will become loose, they'll become unruly, they won't look nice. And the wax actually holds the hairs in place, which gives you a nice clean looking dreadlock, but it's not really a dreadlock. They do the back combing and they do the twist and ripping, which I'll explain in a second, but the whole thing is held together by the wax, which prevents the hairs from shifting and tightening up over time. Hence, you don't actually get proper dreadlocks that way. A couple of other methods that are really popular to use are the crochet hook, the twist and rip, back combing, and then also neglect. I made my dreadlocks using a combination of back combing, twist and rip, and crochet. And for the most part now, I just neglect them. I let them do their own thing. I don't tend to them very often. I tidy them up where they need to be tidied, but for the most part, I like the way that they look naturally. They've matured really nicely. I've had them for about 10 months now. The bottom ones I've had for about a year. The top ones I've had for about 10 months. I had half of my head done by myself first, and then I decided that I liked them and I did the whole head. Okie dokie. Here is my previously one but now two dreadlocks. You can see that I've kept the integrity of the root just because I didn't want to have to go through the whole process of relocking the root, because the root is where all the magic happens. So basically what this would look like is if you'd gone in with a comb and you just back combed it the whole way until you get like a nice little clump, a nice little tuft of knot. Then what I do is I do the twist and rip method, which is pretty simple. You take your section of hair. Now you want the sections to be no wider than your thumbnail. As you can see here, about a thumbnail. You don't want them any thicker than that because as they mature, more hairs will get trapped in there and they'll get heavier and it'll start pulling on your scalp, and then you'll just have to split them like I did, which is basically resetting them back to zero. Not very fun. So, twist and rip method. Basically, you get your section of hair, twist it a quarter turn in the direction you want. Now the turns that I do, I face them away from my head, so on both sides I turn them away from my face. So on this side I turn this way, but say if this was on this side of my head, I'd turn this way, like that. But because it's on this side of my middle part, I'm going to turn this way. So you do a quarter turn and then rip. Brush it out, well, straighten it out, another quarter turn, and then rip. Now with the ripping, you don't really want to worry too much about where you rip or how much you rip, because all you're basically doing is just causing a bunch of little knots up in your hair. So it doesn't really matter where you rip, how much is in each section, but as you can see, once you get going, it's pretty easy. Now an easy trap to fall into is just twisting and twisting and twisting and ripping as you go, but not untwisting after a couple of twists. And what this happens is it gives the dreadlock a braid-like appearance when it's all finished, and that just means that you'll get bigger loops when the hair's not up, and it'll just take slightly longer for them to form to tighten in and become proper dreadlocks. Now with the twist and rip, you don't want to make it so tight to your scalp that your scalp can't breathe, especially when you're getting new dreadlocks. When I was just putting mine in, I sectioned all my hair off using teeny tiny little rubber bands from the chemist. I'll put a picture in here so I can show you what it looked like. And basically I had them all in sections, so what I would do was I'd back comb them and then stick the elastic band on about half an inch, couple of centimeters from the root of my scalp, and you can imagine that all over my scalp was absolutely, it was so painful. My scalp was so tight because the hairs were being pulled in, but after a couple of days it loosened up and it settled down, and so that was good. I just left the little elastic bands in until they broke. Basically what they do at the root is stop your roots from merging and forming things such as combo dreadlocks or multi-dreadlocks, which is where 2, 3 or even 4 dreadlocks grow together in one massive combo line, forming more of a sheet of dreadlocks than an individual dreadlock itself. Now that's okay if you're after that type of style or that's the way that you like your dreadlocks to look, but I prefer mine quite neat and quite separate, because otherwise they just get too heavy for my head and it hurts. So you can see here is this section up here which is all knotted, and you can see the little hairs like this. And I'm just going to keep doing this quarter twist, rip, straighten it out, quarter twist, rip, all the way down the length of this hair, and then I'll bring you back. Okay, I've finished twisted ripping all the way down to the tip. See? Now you can have two options when you come here. You can leave it as I've left it, just with the tip loose hairs and just sort of ripped up to a point. Or what you can do is you can loop the end hairs back up inside here with a crochet hook, and that'll give you a blunt tip effect. That's not what I like for my dreads, so I'm just going to leave them like this. And when I was starting them initially, I'd put little elastic bands down here as well, just to get the tips used to holding the knots so they wouldn't just fray and come apart. As your hair and your dreadlocks mature, they can just fall out as you wish and they'll just stay as is. So yeah. Now I just use the crochet hook to pull in any loose hairs or any loops that I have that form. Loops are basically sections of hair that are not as tight as other sections of hair. So as you have your dreadlock, different hairs in the center of this dreadlock will tighten up at different parts, at different times. And as that happens, the other sections that they're near may not necessarily be tight at the same time. So they'll bunch up and form little loops. Completely natural, don't stress about it. If you like them, leave them. If you don't like them, you can just pull them back in gently with a crochet hook. You want to make sure that you don't pull hard and break any of the hairs, because then that'll compromise the structural integrity of your dreadlock. The final thing that you will need for your dreadlocks, and which will make them really helpful, is palm rolling, especially when they're new. Palm rolling essentially is grabbing the hair between your two palms like this, and just rubbing it together like this all the way down the length of your hair, like that. You can see now a lot of the loose hairs are a lot flatter and they're not as fluffy. Now some people swear by palm rolling, absolutely swear by it, and so they do it all the time, every day, and they get blisters on their hands because they do it all the time. And I'm not the biggest fan of palm rolling. Personally, in my opinion, I think it's kind of pointless unless you're just making your dreadlocks purely out of the back comb method, because using back comb you'll have a massive clump rather than a small defined space. With twist and rip you sort of get a thinner dreadlock, whereas with back combing you get a big clump. In order to form it into a dreadlock, you will need to palm roll that clump down into the shape that you want it to be. So that would be the only time I'd consider palm rolling. Varian's back. He's still super, super grabby and bitey. Now, when you first get your dreadlocks, your scalp is going to be really tight and really sore, and you're going to want to pull and tug and itch. Please resist that urge as much as possible. I promise in a couple of days, they'll loosen up, they'll settle down, they'll feel much better. At first, they're going to stick up straight out of your scalp and look really weird and feel really uncomfortable, but they will settle down as time goes. You can wear a beanie. I'd recommend any woolen hats that you have. Wool's really good for dealing with the little flyaway hairs. I'd try to avoid having them up as much as possible, or in hair elastics, in tight hair elastics, because that'll pull the hairs apart in ways that you don't necessarily want, and because they're young, they'll be soft and squishy and rather likely to disform and disfigure. In the first sort of couple of days to the first few weeks, your dreadlocks are going to be fuzzy. They're going to be super fuzzy. They're going to look like this. They're going to be fuzzy, 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 and really loose and really messy. Completely normal. Don't stress. Don't sit there all day trying to crochet them back in so they look nice and tight. You need to understand that you have scaffolding, essentially. You have scaffolding to hold your hair in the sections that you want to dreadlock up over time. Dreadlocks take a very long time to completely form properly. Anywhere from a year to 2.5 years. I've had mine for 10 months and they're still nowhere near finished. They're still nowhere near mature. The best advice I can give you for your new dreadlocks is to just leave them alone, let them do their thing. Hair's very smart, it knows what you want it to do. It will get better the longer that you leave it. The more you play with it, the more you twist and rip, the more you roll, the more you crochet, the more you delay the dreadlocks actually forming. So the longer you can leave them, just let them do their own thing. It'll be worth it. At first, I would touch them all the time. I'd crochet them. I hated all the little loose flyaways. But the issue with crocheting new dreadlocks is there's no strength inside the core of the dreadlock to hold the little hairs in once you pull them in with the crochet hook. And that means that they'll just flop right back out just like they did the first time. So you can't really crochet your dreadlocks to get them the way that you want them to look until they're a couple of months old at least. That's gonna suck. And I know it's gonna suck, and you're gonna wanna crochet them, and they're gonna look fuzzy, and they're gonna look gross, and people are gonna laugh at you because you have weird looking dreadlocks. Please just wait and be patient, because the longer you can wait, the more awesome they're gonna look. Okay, the final way that you can make dreadlocks is via the neglect or the freeform method. They're two separate things, so please don't get them confused. Freeform is when you just stop brushing your hair and you let your hair do its thing the way it wants to. It will naturally lock up, but the sections will be random, the sizes will be random, the speed is completely up to the hair itself. You have no control, and sometimes that's what people want. That's totally cool, totally fine. It's not how I wanted to do mine because I wanted mine all done all straight at once, so I at least had something to work with. There are some cons to this. As I said before, they'll look messy for the longest time. You will get random sections of different sizes and different thicknesses in different spaces. But the pro is you have completely natural hair, and if that's what you're looking for, then awesome, and they will look amazing. A con is that to get freeform dreadlocks, you need to wait at least a year. At least a year before you have any sign of progress. Your hair's gonna look scruffy for a long, long time, but they'll be nice and thin, mostly. Some of them will be kind of thick. It's up to the hair itself, but they'll look gorgeous. Ultimately, whatever method you use, they all end up looking the same in the end. It's just down to personal preference and personal choice. Now, the last one is neglect. Separate to the freeform method. Freeform is where you just stop brushing your hair and let your hair do its thing. Neglect can then come from the freeform. You just let it do its thing. You don't touch it, you don't fiddle with it, you don't pick it apart, you don't section them. And it also happens when you put your hair up in a twist and rip, like I did, for example, and then you just leave it. You don't touch it, you don't crochet it, you don't palm roll it, you don't do anything. Neglect is exactly what it says. You leave the hair alone, you neglect it in the sense that you don't maintain the neatness. But you still wash your hair, you still do whatever you want to, dry it, look after it, but don't fiddle with it, so to speak. And the final thing I wanted to talk about today was colouring dreadlocks. As you can see, My dreadlocks are blue and purple. There used to be a bit of pink in them, but that's since washed out. This used to be pink, but it's just like a yuck bleh colour, so I'm just going to change that next time. Decided I don't like pink. Basically, dreadlocks are just made of natural hair, so you treat them the same as natural hair. I bleached and colour and toned my hair exactly the same as when I used to with straight undreadlocked hair, because in the end it's just hair and it all reacts the same. The only thing you're going to notice between unlocked and locked hair is when if you split a dreadlock or you take them out, the cores of the dreadlock won't be coloured. They won't be bleached, they'll just be whatever it was before it went in, because the bleach can't penetrate deep enough into the core of your dreadlock. That really doesn't matter unless you are taking them out, because the whole outside gets coloured and that's all you see. If you're taking them out, you will need to re-dye your hair, recolour your hair. Other than that, I treat them the same as I did my normal hair, except I now don't brush my hair. And it's super easy and convenient. Okay guys, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please leave it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments or concerns or queries or anything, you just want to chat, please leave it down below. I'd love to get back to you as soon as possible. I'd love answering all of your questions. Please have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time.